se te dhammam anakam pimam pacha.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. It's nice to see so many people here tonight, kind of looking out. Like everybody's either a guest or a long-term supporter of the monastery or resident. So it's I love the one pra kind of evenings because it always feels like family. And Saturdays are nice, and or Sundays now. Sunday mornings are nice, or afternoons when we do the talks because. Oftentimes we get newer people coming, but I was telling Lumpur a while back, I don't always feel comfortable, or I don't think any of us really do, but giving Dhamma reflections. And but I told him if it worked out, if it was possible for him to arrange it in a particular way, that I feel more comfortable giving them on the one pra, just because I figure everybody's here to come and practice, and it's not that the Sunday talk is entertaining or anything, but I think it takes a little, I wouldn't say more skill, but you have a wider range of people's understandings, and you really want to make sure you don't say anything incorrect on the, you never want to say anything incorrect in a Dhamma talk that could lead people the wrong direction, but I always kind of feel like on the one pras, it's like people are really here to take advantage of this opportunity. I mean, there's so many things that you could have been doing tonight that you valued sitting together in a group and chant together, to meditate, to listen to some Dhamma reflections, to maybe stay a little longer, even do sitting and walking. It's just it's a wonderful thing that happens in the world. And kind of all week, with Lumpur being on his personal retreat, Ajahn Siri and I are kind of sharing the duties of the talks, and so I kind of knew it would be tonight. And but again, it's like nothing really strongly has been coming up for me. Just doing most of the morning reflections and kind of reflections about what's happening in the moment and what's happening in that day, and so I was kind of hoping something would happen again today that would do that. One thing did on the alms round. I mentioned this probably a couple of months ago, but I'm categorizing these things in my mind as outrageous statements, and I heard one of the somebody making the statement that sort of, being celibate, that's like the easy way. It's the easy practice. And of course, I threw up about 100 objections in my mind and kind of wanted to argue with the person. And I think I only threw up maybe one or two in the conversation. But the other monk that I was with was like, listening to the other person and said, yeah, there actually is a way that you could, state that, and that's actually true. Being celibate is the easy way, or being a monk is the easy way. It's like, if you want to get enlightened, the celibacy is the easiest way. And I was like, darn, that's actually right. not darn the fact that celibacy is the right way to go, but it's just like, I could say I wanted to argue the point or point out a bunch of inconsistencies with that maybe argument, and I was like, actually, if you really value enlightenment, you really want to stop suffering. I'll paraphrase. I don't think this is exactly what he said, but he kind of said that it's like if you really want to get enlightened, that sort of practices of renunciation, like we chanted in the chant tonight, sort of right intention, the intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of non-cruelty. It's like that's the way to go in terms of the attitude of mind. And so, like practicing celibacy or having these renunciate practices, it's going to lead to non-contention. It's going to lead to a more peaceful, wholesome states of mind. It's going to be the foundation for good meditation, for wisdom to arise. Very briefly, kind of stating that, but that's really true. And then, kind of, I don't know if it's kind of a joke, but kind of said something to the effect of like, if you want to, practice non-celibacy, you can. That is a more difficult path. If you really want to choose a path that's difficult and contention and misunderstandings and difficulties, and you want to be reborn another 1,000 times, then practice non-celibacy. So he was kind of stated in jest, but it was I think a really powerful statement. So I was kind of thinking of that during the sit tonight, and it reminded me there's a couple other places in the suttas where the Tankachanda just found it for me just before came in to do the precepts, and it was Vojana, Brahman.
The Brahman of Varanja?
Varanja. And so he meets the Buddha, or the Buddha meets him, and the Brahman sort of expecting the Buddha to pay respects to him, and because he's older, and in Indian society, many societies in the world, we pay respects to elders, just by biological age, and the Buddha doesn't, pay respects, and so the Brahman's kind of chastising the Buddha, and so we were looking at two different versions, and I think Bhikkhu Bodhi's in his latest in the Anguttara Nikaya, it kind of states it more in terms of sort of like, you can see that it was kind of like the Brahman was trying to like insult the Buddha, and I just wrote down the first two, and the Brahmins, like when the Buddha kind of makes the statement, it's like, well, I actually don't see anybody in the world that's worthy of veneration, other than me, because he's like the Buddha. Anybody that's and the Brahman says, Gautama is without taste. That's a pretty. It even does kind of sound that way. It's like to say that I don't see anybody else in the whole world that's worthy of me bowing to. It's like, that's not really a tasteful thing to say. And so the Buddha says, it's actually. When he says that, he says, there's actually a way that Brahman, that statement is true. He says, I am without taste for forms, for sights, for sounds, for, sense pleasures. And then the Brahman says something to the effect of like, Gautama is without enjoyment, and he says, there's a way that you could actually say that. I don't enjoy the sensual pleasures. I don't enjoy sights. I don't enjoy sounds and smells and taste, and I don't need those things for my enjoyment. And then he just goes through this I think it's like 8 or 10 other kind of things that the Brahman sort of keeps throwing out at him, and the Buddha's like, yeah, there's actually a way that you can say that's true, and just sort of turns it on him. And I'm like, yeah, it's really quite a beautiful attitude. Or he didn't need to argue with the Brahmin or get into a fight with him or anything. Just, yeah, well, actually what you're saying is true. So kind of thinking about these two examples, the being on the alms round and this teaching of the Buddha that came up. For some reason I was thinking of just in general, just like interactions we have with people. It seems like in the world, it's always happening, but if you read the news now or just paying attention, what's happening, it seems like there's a lot of us versus them, a lot of contention, and I just had the thought that it's interesting with speech, that I always think of it in terms of like, anytime anybody says anything to us, in almost any situation, we don't tend to think of it this way, but they're actually reaching out to us. They're actually trying to make a connection. Even like fortunately, not many people here follow the news, but like all the protests and counter protests that are happening. It's like, if even like at that these counter protests, like if there's one person wearing black and one person wearing white, and they're arguing with each other. It's like, at some level, there's like this, for one person to say something to the other person. They're doing that. I think at some level, like they're trying to communicate. They're trying to reach out, make some sort of connection. To it might be diluted. They might be trying to persuade somebody to your argument. But even in that sense, if someone's trying to to reach out to you to change your view, it's like they valued you at some level. They actually think that you're worth somebody that's worth trying to change the view of. And I say it's kind of diluted because just looking back at my own life, my own experiences, and like whenever I was forced to believe something, whenever I was demanded to act in a particular way, or be some way that somebody else wanted me to be. I think if I look back at those honestly, probably like every single attitude I have in life, not everyone, but those particular views and opinions that were forced on me, I probably have the exact opposite view as an adult. It's like, we talk about how things are conditioned. So like, if someone told me I have to do it this way, then and was actually really forced to do it, there's probably going to be some negativity towards that. So like that person trying to force their view on us, or they might be able to get us to be quiet so we can get out of the situation, but we probably just really strengthens just the opposite. So that so the Buddha does point to like, we need to learn how to be skillful. We need to learn how to do things in a way that we have better understanding, right view of how things are conditioned, how things do come to be in the world. And then I think one way we can then, once we coming from that, really looking at that like right intention, how. And I think if we have that right intention, the intention not to harm, not to have ill will. If somebody is coming at us with the view that we disagree with, and are trying to counter it, it's like I just like this kind of phrase. Yeah, there's actually some way that what you're saying is true. Let's talk about that. Let's have a dialogue about it. Because things that I see that people are really arguing about, it's usually. Let's just take an example, like say homelessness, or people not having enough food to eat. And then I think everybody agrees that people should have shelter. I think everybody agrees everybody should have an education and medicines. But the problem is we don't always agree on who should take care of those people or how that should be taken care of. And so we get caught up in the arguments of the how to take care of it, not what needs to be done. So then ends up nothing ever gets done. So it's like we need to kind of learn how to talk to each other, how to listen to each other. And it's not just in the sort of political realm or out in the world, but even in the monastery. We need to, even with ourselves, just to have conflicting views and opinions within our own mind about how to do something or what we can see clearly. It's like during this period of time, we're getting a lot of time to be on retreat, and it's very common to have an intention going into the entire retreat period, our individual retreat period, and kind of, I'm going to spend more time chanting, and I'm going to learn these chants, or I'm going to not have setting determinations of like, I'm going to not have breakfast or cut back on desserts or whatever it is. And then you get on the retreat, and having the determination is easy, but then following through with it is not always as easy. You can start getting the mind trying to come in and rationalize why you don't need to do those things, or we get lazy and give in to thoughts of wanting to do something easier, something maybe more pleasurable than putting forth the effort for whatever our determination was. So I think all of us can see that, where we just have conflicted minds. And so the discussion this morning on the alms round about celibacy, being the easy way. I think the main thing I took from that, listening was, this to the conversation was, it's like it's very, the way the conversation went was quite beautiful. It didn't turn into contention or trying to convince the other person that no, celibacy is the harder path. It's it's not easy at all. I was just watching the conversation, going, well, it's really beautiful the way it did happen. It didn't have to justify the position that I have. It could just be talk to the person and find out, well, what is it that how do you practice? What do you benefit from practice? What are the areas of what have you tried in the past that's worked around that, or what areas have been of concern, and getting the person to talk about their own practice, and then get them to see it in a slightly different way, instead of trying to convince them of my way being right and his is wrong. It's like, well, maybe I'll learn something from him about the way he practices, and what methods, things he's tried that worked or didn't work. So it's just a much more fruitful way of looking at the situation. And so that, to me, was like just the epitome of the sort of non-ill will, sort of not being contentious. And so, so right there, just in that conversation, was talking a little bit about renunciation and sort of non-ill will, and I don't know how this totally, if it even connects at all, but one of the other things that I kind of brought up during the week, during the morning, when a lot of almost like half the community was sort of up doing preparations or cleaning or staining one of the decks for one of the large buildings. And so we've had kind of a skeletal crew down here in the mornings all this week. and which is quite nice to see the people really doing a lot of good work on maintaining the monastery and keeping things. It's like you can see out here this big construction project we're working on, but all the things that we've already built still need to be maintained, and putting forth good effort to sort of value the things that have already been donated and built, and just to keep them in good order so they'll last for quite a long time. And the story I told was it's probably about 2 weeks ago. I've been doing a lot more sort of walking around the monastery, so probably maybe it wasn't even unusual, but just spending a lot more time outdoors. But I kept coming across dead rats in the monastery, and I found 3 within like a couple-day period, and 2 within like about a 9-hour period. And I knew that if you found dead birds, you're supposed to really carefully sort of collect them and take them into disease control, health and human services, and they check them for West Nile's disease. So I was kind of concerned that seeing these rats, and so Debbie was Debbie was away, but I called her. She kind of knows about these kind of things, and she's like, well, yeah, you could call them if you wanted to, but it's probably best just to collect them and bury them, because if they are sick or diseased, we don't want the foxes, so many foxes around right now, we don't want them to maybe eat them. So I went out with a shovel, and by the time I got to them, there was only one of them was still on the trail, so I collected it, and then, as I like to say, I conveniently tried to forget about it, and I didn't have to ask somebody to dig a hole, and so I put it in a really tight sealed bag, and then put it in a Ziploc bag, and then I put it in an old paint can with a lid on it, and then conveniently tried to forget it in the upper parking lot somewhere. And it was about 10 days later, and I was walking by the box, and I smelled this really, really, really bad odor coming from the box, and I was like, oh, I should have taken care of that 10 days ago when Debbie told me I should bury it. And so, it was right before the meal and the kitchen cleanup, and so one of the Anagarkas went up with me, and we tried to take care of it, and it was kind of, at that point, we were too busy to bury it, because we had the Sunday Dhamma talk in the afternoon, so we just got a big bucket of water with bleach and put the remains of it in the bleach, and then came back the next day, and one of the guests here dug a hole and buried it. But it just a great reminder to me of, at the time it was just procrastinating. It's like, we know there's things that we should be doing or need to be doing, but it's this kind of like conflicted mind. It's really easy to put things off and to not do them. And I was kind of not really upset, or not upset with myself, but I was like, I wonder why. What was the reason why I didn't take care of that rat to start with? I haven't come to any conclusions, but not wanting to get somebody else involved, not wanting to. This isn't the greatest time to be digging holes in the ground because the earth is so hard, or it's hard to know. But I can really clearly see later. It's like, yeah, that would have been so simple, just to ask somebody to dig a hole and to put it in. It wouldn't have smelled bad. Nobody would have had to. You should have seen us up there. We were wearing biohazard suits and respirators and gloves, and everything got gathered, and everything that touched the rat got thrown into bleach water and taken care of. But I can also see too, is it ended up being, because it ended up becoming a lot more effort in the end to take care of it when we neglected it. So I can kind of see, like, this kind of ties into the this bigger conversation about being in dialogue with people. It's like, if we kind of put off the dialogue and kind of get into I'm right, they're wrong, and not really looking at what needs to be done, not valuing that, then the problem's going to fester. It's going to get worse. It's going to smell bad. It's going to be harder to fix it, both internally and externally. And there are situations where, in monastic life, where sometimes there's sort of issues that just are just difficult to resolve, and so the Buddha actually gives us different guidelines for how to deal with difficult situations. And oftentimes it is just sort of, if it's an individual, just to bring them into the midst and sort of ask them questions to find out why that view is being held, or if it's clearly a wrong view, to try to show the person what's wrong with that view, and try to persuade them to at least not be teaching that wrong view. And then if the person's able to see that and acknowledge it and change their ways, then we forgive them and let them, okay, everything's fine. And if they don't see it as an offense, or they see it as an offense but refuse to change their ways, then sometimes it's just, well, we have to cut ties with that person to say, it's no longer appropriate to live here. And there are some issues that are just maybe just too contentious to even be dealt with, and it's called like covering over with grass. It just sort of an issue comes up, and it's just not, there isn't a solution. So it's like, why keep bringing it up if all it does is bring up contention and hurt feelings. And so sometimes, not every issue has to have an answer. It's just that we can agree that, okay, this is just something that doesn't need to be brought up. At least at that time, we just set it aside and let's move on. So the Buddha isn't, sort of saying that, everything's going to be rosy and beautiful, but there are beautiful ways of dealing with things. And talking about sort of beautiful ways of dealing with things, just right before the evening puja, we've been having some issues with the construction project, and Lumpur gave me some instructions to talk to Wayne about some things. You're really kind of trying to push the construction project forward so it's a little safer for people around here. And then literally just before I came in, like 5 minutes before the evening puja started, I was talking to the project manager, and I don't know exactly what's happening, but the county that has to approve all the building stuff, sounds like it's like a completely brand new group of people working there, and I don't know if it's not that they don't know how to do their job, or they're just being extremely over by the book. Worried about lawsuits, or I don't know what's going on, but Wayne was telling me that it might be like a month to 6 weeks before they can actually approve even doing the concrete pour out here. And I was just like, oh man, do I have to tell them pour that while he's on retreat? And so Wayne's going to go in and talk to the inspector and probably the inspector's boss, and so we have no idea what's actually going to happen. But again, just sort of my mind is seeing, there's a skillful way of dealing with the situation and an unskillful one. Like I say, it's not always going to be problems don't always have the solutions that we want. It's like maybe this inspector is correct. Maybe maybe we're missing something, and it's not going to go. If it does 6 weeks, it's totally going to throw out just about everything in terms of the building project. I think we've even invited Lumpur Liam to come here next year, and I imagine if we get pushed back 6 weeks, that's not gonna, the reason we wanted him to come isn't probably gonna get done. And so, looking at this, how can we even, approach something like that, that's, it's not gonna be the end of the world, but it's definitely it's gonna throw off the whole schedule for the monastery. But can we do it with a heart that's not upset, that's not angry, finger pointing, but approach it with what's okay. How do we proceed? Are there ways to make it faster? Are there ways to alternative things that we can do? And so I think meditation practice is like this a lot too. We come in with an idea, an attitude, a view of what we expect to have happen, what we want to accomplish, and we just have to make adjustments. And I think a lot of it is being open and paying attention to the results of our practice, of our efforts, and just keeping that right view and right intention in mind, and the right effort. So I'll leave that for our reflection this evening.
Sadhu, 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 anumodami.
So it's not quite, but almost 9:30, and so if anybody wishes to participate in the all-night sit, we kind of ask people not to come in or out of the hall until the half-hour mark, so 9:30, 10, 10:30, 11, and then at midnight there'll probably be tea and some allowables served over in the. Are we doing that over in the reception hall or in here? In here, it's probably safer over here. Yeah, do it here, and then 3 o'clock morning chanting.